of fraud risk and establishing controls to deter and or detect fraud that may occur, promote corporate governance and appropriate ethical standards, and then lastly, to communicate with us regarding any specific concerns that you have that you'd like us to take a look at in connection with the audit. So the next slide, here's the timetable. Now, in a perfect world, we would have liked to have had this planning meeting to identify the responsibilities and talk about the audit prior to the actual start of the audit. It could be before preliminary field work, but definitely before final field work. So this year, things with everything that happened, the pandemic, the timeline got a little skewed, but we actually performed our preliminary audit field work on a remote basis during the month of June. The year end, the field work is currently in process. I spoke with Mark Quackenbush, who's the Senior Assurance Associate on the engagement, just before this call. I know he had submitted an open item list. He told me that the majority of the items on that list have been provided to us. He is going to go through and summarize any additional items that we're still waiting on, and there probably will be a couple of more items or questions that come up. And once we have those additional items and we're able to go through what Karen, I believe, provided to us today, we probably have about 2 to 3 additional days remote in order to finish field work. The goal is to have draft deliverables to you during the month of September, with final deliverables by October 15th, with a presentation to the audit committee and the board during the month of October as well. Questions or concerns? Okay, the next slide, we talked about this already. I mean, we conduct our audit essentially in 3 phases. We have a planning phase. That's on us, where we get prepared for the audit. We talk about what the risks are, where we're going to direct our audit focus. We do interim field work or preliminary field work that normally involves detailed transactional testing at the cash receipt, cash disbursement, and payroll areas, and then final field work, which we are in right now, where we're actually performing tests over the balances in your financial statements. The next slide, our audit approach continues. It's a risk-based approach designed to focus on identified areas of risk. We perform an initial risk assessment during preliminary field work, and then we update that based on our internal control testing and preliminary analytical reviews. We also develop procedures based on input from the board and any observations we make during the audit as it progresses. And we do involve materiality in sampling. So materiality means we have certain thresholds that we are going to look at transactions over a certain amount and that's at a fund level, as well as the overall financial statement level. And we are going to use sampling in our audit procedures, which means that we're not going to look at every single transaction. We're going to do random samples, haphazard samples, in order to get a population that represents what we're looking at and gives us a respectable representation, and then we can perform our test work on that sample. Next page, the specific areas of focus are cash, to make sure that it's timely reconciled by fund, accounts receivable, that they're collectible and they're earned, that we're properly recognizing revenue, accounts payable, the existence of the payable in terms of staying on budget, and also the completeness, to make sure all our expenses are recorded in the proper accounting period, and that's going to be our fiscal year end of June 30th, 2020. We're going to focus also on expenditures, performing internal control testing over disbursements and payroll. We'll look at accrued liabilities to make sure that they're recorded in the proper fund. We'll audit the reserves to make sure they're complying with laws and regulations. We'll perform procedures over capital assets. And lastly, we'll also perform procedures over your OPEB, your other post-employment benefits, and pension accruals. So, Deb, do you mind running us through the next couple slides on the GASB pronouncements? Oh, you may. I think you're muted.
Okay. Better?
Better. Oops, still can't hear you.
Weird. Okay, how about now?
Yes.
Oh my God. All right, I'll figure it out eventually, I promise. As Tom said, I'm transitioning to be entirely tech, so I'm coming off the audit side. But some of you may recognize me from last year, and Tom, you're in great hands with Tom, but if for any reason anyone needs to reach out to me about stuff from last year, I'm still here and I can help facilitate. So some of the things that are coming up for current year standard considerations are that they actually, because of the COVID pandemic, GASB postponed a lot of the effective dates of some pretty major standards that were going to change your financial statements. So these are all by number. 83 to 84 and 89 to 93 were moved forward by a year, and we'll talk about what they are in the next couple slides. And number 87 was only by 18 months. So that'll come into effect in a year, and the other ones will be a couple years down the road. So what the heck are they? The major ones that are probably going to affect the district are number 84, which deals with your fiduciary activities. The major issue with this, and GASB really hasn't come out with final guidance for us, but it'll be effective for periods beginning after 12/15/19. So it'll be for next fiscal year. But basically, what's going to happen is your extra classroom activities funds. The way that we've always audited them is that they are on the cash basis of accounting. So whatever money comes in and whatever money gets spent is what goes in the financial statements. That's what we audit. If there's any receivables or payables at your end, they get ignored. You only deal with them when they're paid. Well, what GASB is proposing is that it's not truly a fiduciary activity since the district has control of the bank accounts. It's the money of the students, and they recognize that, but since there's so much record keeping and control done by district, they're saying they're really not fiduciary activities, and we have to then put them in, they're right now suggesting the general fund. These might become general fund expenses and so forth. And the issue with that is, as many of you know, if you've read the extra classroom activities reports in the past, there's often not great controls over those funds because it deals a lot with students. So having to audit them at the level that we do based on general accounting standards and GAAP, it could prove to be rather difficult. So we're waiting on final guidance, hoping maybe they'll change their mind or they'll give us some more guidance on exactly what has to happen, but that's going to be a pretty major one. So that will be interesting. The second one that's going to come up in a couple of years has to do with leases. So in the past, there were kind of these two concepts of capital leases, which means you've entered into a lease, and at the end of the lease, whatever you're paying for is going to become yours, the district. Or there's this concept of an operating lease. So you rent a building or you rent some piece of equipment for a set number of years, and at the end of it, if you move out, a new tenant moves in, no big deal, called an operating lease. In the past, capital leases always got reported in the general fund on your entity-wide financial statements. and the operating leases just ran in whatever fund they should be, and they're just reported as an expense. Well, GASB says going forward, those operating leases really have to be put up onto the balance sheet just like the capital leases. So you'll have a right to use asset and an offsetting liability for the term of the lease that you've signed. And it's discounted, you know, for the time value of money. But that is going to be a pretty significant change for a lot of districts, specifically if you have, you know, bus leases, if you lease part of your building to like a BOCES program or a day, you know, a daycare after school program, or if you lease copiers or any other kind of equipment or building. So that's one to start to think about getting the information pulled together so that when we have to implement it, it's not quite as difficult. The next one has to do with interest costs when you're in the middle of construction. If you capitalize those before the construction period ends, most districts don't, so that's all I'm really going to say about that one. But that's sort of the new pronouncements that are coming up.
Right.
You want me to keep going, Tom, or you got?
No, I'll switch back, but I might have to throw a lifeline out there. Thank you. So just in wrap up, a few other items. Since the audit is performed in accordance with government auditing standards, also referred to as the Yellow Book, there are independent standards that need to be maintained. So the district is required to identify a person who has appropriate SKE. SKE is skills, knowledge, and experience to be responsible to oversee any non-audit services that we perform for the district. So the fact that we are drafting your financial statements for you as part of the audit is considered a non-audit service. So, and that's why we give the financial statements to you in draft form and have you go through them, ask any questions, and then ask you to, you know, authorize us to finalize those financial statements. And we're trying to make sure that we have the right, that you have the right person or persons who are performing that review. The next slide, just to keep everybody apprised, the Office of State Controller puts out a list of their hot button items, for lack of a better term. They're listed on this page: financial management, budgeting, reserves and oversight, IT issues, food services, purchasing, fuel monitoring, staff attendance, leave accruals and separation payments, and extra classroom activities. So obviously we know this, and as part of the audit, when we are assessing risk, we are taking this into consideration when designing our audit procedures. Now, due to COVID-19, we've all experienced the work from home or remote workforce. So the majority of this audit this year, if not all of it, has been done remotely, and we've been transferring data back and forth through our secure portal, possibly the engagement organizer, but I believe it's been mostly the portal that's been used by both us and you to transfer information back and forth. And what does that do to us? We have to consider your processes and controls. How are they impacted by COVID-19? You know, you had one set of internal controls before COVID-19 hit. Now we had to leave. We had to work from home. You know, so what are the internal controls during COVID-19? And now, as we're trying to reopen, you know, what do those controls look like? It also requires us to take a look at what we call going concern and possible subsequent event considerations, and any of this that you might want to put on your MD&A that gets included as required supplementary information within the audited financial statements. The next slide is just lists some of the value-added services that we perform or are able to perform. I won't really go through this in detail, and that's really all that we had to say. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm very I try to be proactive with my audits, just like Deb was. So if anybody has a question, please don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give me a call. My contact information is listed on the next slide, both by phone and by email. Even if a few days from now you say, you know what, I wished I had asked them that question. Please reach out to me. Be happy to take the question and answer it as best we can. But as a firm, we pretty much believe in open communication throughout the audit process. So, please take advantage of that. Any questions or concerns? Okay. Well, I thank everybody for your time. I hope you have a good rest of your meeting. And Karen Mark will be in touch with you, and we'll work. Hopefully, the both of us, both sides, will work diligently towards the conclusion of the audit and try to get out of your way as quickly, effectively, and efficiently as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I believe Mark's coming out this way tomorrow, so we should have everything to him.
Yeah, I mentioned that. I told, because one of the things I said is, sometimes if the package that we're asking for is voluminous, it's not so easy to
Right.
take it apart and upload that to the portal. So I said, pick your samples, and if there's anything that's easier that you guys can box up, we'll come pick it up. So that might be, it sounds like it's happening.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you both for coming tonight.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much for your time tonight. Oh, all right. So. All right. So we're back on. All set?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure whether I had volume or if I was, I could still hear people. All right. So Karen, thank you very much for making that available to us. And it actually helps to explain a lot of things that will be coming at us. All right. I'd like to move ahead with the rest of the agenda items. If there's no objection, I'd like to combine A and B under old business, in which we are removing Justin Rushinsky's name from the asbestos designee and the safety committee, and recommending Drew Haskell to take on that designee as for asbestos control. Do I have a?
So moved.
Heidi, have a second?
Second.
Second by Jackie. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I think I see Dan. 5-0. So I tried to do a split screen, so my little boxes are very tiny. So I'm trying to keep track of everybody. Actually, the next item on the agenda is the bus leases, and entertain a motion to enter into the lease for a 65 passenger bus and a 35 passenger bus for 5 years.
So moved.
Good, Bob.
Second.
And second by Heidi. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Under personnel, if there's no objection, I would like to move item A, B, and C under one motion to combine for the accepting the resignations of Justin Rushinsky, Ms. Brown, and Joseph Wilder from his assistant head mechanic position.
So moved.
Is that Jackie?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried, 5-0. I'd like to combine letters D and E into one motion, please, to appoint Joseph Wilbur to the head bus mechanic position and accept his terms and conditions with the addendum that allows him to use his accrued sick time.
So moved.
Heidi? We have a second. Is that Jackie? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. The next one is entertain a motion to. I'm getting feedback, and I don't know if it's my machine or am I being clear with people? Okay, as long as I can be heard. Entertain a motion to appoint Leah Heideland, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, to the position of school counselor.
So moved.
Jackie?
Second.
Second by Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried, 5-0. Welcome, Leah, to Salem Central School. And I'd entertain a motion to appoint Daryl Holovach, is that how you say it, Holovach, to the position of music teacher?
So moved.
Jackie?
Second.
Second by Bob. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried, 5-0. Or H, it's actually got two parts. It's to accept the resignation and appoint Mary Kay Blank as CSE secretary. I have a motion for that.
So moved.
Jackie,
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. Opposed? Sorry. Motion carries 5-0. And the last item under personnel was an addition to the agenda. So anybody's got an old agenda printout, there isn't one more thing. It does have to do with the memorandum of agreement with WADA to cover additional days for Mr. Zarzicki to work on the schedule for the junior senior high school. A motion to accept that agreement, memorandum of agreement.
So moved.
Is that Heidi?
Yeah.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Jackie. Any questions, concerns, discussion?
Yeah, and I have a quick bit on that.
Okay.
As we just before the meeting hit, I got some additional feedback on this agreement from the school attorney. It doesn't really change the material of what we're asking the board to approve, which is the additional days for the work to be done. But it's enough of a change to the MOA where it wouldn't be. We need WADA to be able to have an opportunity for their legal team to look at it back and again. And I'm sorry that it's rushed together, but it's time of the year a little bit for all of us that's there. So to the board, I guess there's a couple options with this. I don't know. If the board chooses to move forward with it, I'd recommend that we either amend the motion under the contingency of seeing a revised version. Could be one option. Another option could be just to table it simply and wait for the revision to come. And then we would have to have another special meeting where we would just need a quorum if there was kind of a holistic agreement to the basics of what this piece is in order to get this passed and move forward. Or the third option would be just for the board to give me the authority to sign off on this once the legal which the legal changes were made, pending final approval on the 19th, for that to be happen. And the only reason I offer the options up is because time is now of the essence, as we're trying to build a brand new block schedule and get it into place as we start school in September.
Dr. Glover, what does the school attorney think that they might be addressing in changing what's currently in the memorandum?
I think probably, other than much of it is just like legalese, it's being a little more precise in some of the language across. I think probably the biggest piece in the language itself was that it was where we were talking about 15 additional days. It's really up to 15 additional days. So if it only took 10, we're only paying for 10. We're not paying for 15. So it's that. I mean, that's really the biggest change in the legal advice from my read. But with that, it's Jane needs some time so her counsel can look at it too. As to there, but it's I don't know if Jane is on, but we're in material agreement. We're in a material agreement on the basics of what needs to be done. It was just last minute legal check and making sure that the WADA has its fair opportunity for review before final sign-offs.
Okay. What are people's thoughts? Would you want to wait until we get the actual memorandum and have a special meeting to take a look at that, or go with one of the other options that Dr. suggested?
Since we're doing it virtually, I'd be happy to, I mean, it shouldn't take long just to approve that in a quick special meeting. I'd be happy to do that. It's not a hill to die on for me, but that would be my position.
I have trouble signing off on something that I haven't read. So I would like to see
Okay.
what the recommendation for changes might be.
Okay. And I certainly understand that this is certainly not the way, that either side wants us to go through. It's just timing and COVID. Sure. Is the board comfortable with an emergency meeting?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay. So just as a reminder, is an emergency meeting, it's less than the 72-hour notification that goes up into play, and the board, 3/5 of the board has to agree that they're waiving that requirement. And we'll have that paperwork for folks to agree to, just so the board understands what that is. Because I would only anticipate needing another 24 hours, so we could have our next meeting as soon as Friday or even Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, and I think as long as we, I think we still have the obligation to try to get that onto Facebook and I mean, we can, to the maximum extent possible, still try to notice it, even if it's not the 72.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the cases that's not going to be the full time that we normally put into place.
Yep. No, I think that's reasonable.
So we will
Have another.
table.
So I think we actually, point of order, I think we actually want to postpone.
Thank you.
I guess we don't have a definite time, but to the next emergency meeting.
So all in favor, do we need to vote on that if we postpone it?
Yes.
I'm trying to learn all my.
Yeah, no, I think we do. I think we need to, but then we don't need to, there doesn't need to be another motion. We'll just, in that meeting, it'll just start up automatically.
Okay. So we have to
introduce it.
Okay. So all in favor of postponing till our next emergency meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Motion carries 5-0.
Great, thank you. As soon as I hear back from Jane and her folks, I know she's already forwarded it on. We'll let you know. We'll get you a copy of what that updated draft is so you can see it, and we'll be able to move forward. Thank you.
And I lost, all of a sudden I lost the list, but we did have people here from the public. It's not on the agenda, but I would like to open up the meeting to any public comment if there's questions or concerns. I don't have people signal to you, Dr. Glover, so see, I don't see all the squares, so do you see anybody who?
My Hollywood Squares is a couple screens too. and not everyone is on a video piece. So I think in this case, if there was someone who wanted to speak, want to speak to the board, could just simply unmute themselves and go ahead and do that.
Okay. I'm not seeing any unmutes. Do you see
Nope, no
anybody?
unmutes, and the only Amy asked a question about the background noise, which I think we have solved.
Is it coming from a computer or is it coming from your new location, the background noise? Was it?
I think some of the laggardness is actually coming from my location.
Okay.
In there, because I'm not wired in. Because the board had talked about wanting to have a meeting back in person again, and the distance learning room makes a lot of space. So I'm actually glad that happened now. So because I know what I can find the issue and I can talk with our techs to figure that out. But the noise is coming from elsewhere.
Okay. So, Dr. Glover, I don't have anything that would move us into executive session. Is there anything that you currently have?
And I have nothing new at this time, no. Thank you.
So actually, at this point, it does look like we've covered everything on the agenda. Was there anything else that anybody needed to add or bring up? Well, entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So move.
Second.
Second, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. See you soon.
Thanks,
When we do
everybody.
our-
Have a good night.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Have a good night.
There it goes. No, how do I do this?